So today we're working on my Forester a little bit. We were doing a motor swap on a 3000 GT. The parts that we needed aren't going to be here today, unfortunately. It missed its delivery, so I actually had all today scheduled for the 3000. So now I'm just kind of sitting here. So I have been neglecting the Forester for quite some time now, and I really need to install some parts on it. So the first thing I'm doing is actually my wideband. The reason why I'm doing my wideband today is because that I found out on my airbags the leader line had wrapped itself around, so it's already off. So I was using, when I first tuned this car with the rotator setup, I was using my Dyno's wideband. It's a portable LM2, but you know, now it's actually time to get one installed since we're about to do flex fuel and all that jazz. So the easiest way of doing this is actually going through the driver's side fender well. So if you go through the fender well, turn on the light here. When you go through the fender well, you'll see that there's a grommet right here. And this is actually the power wire that I ran for my airbag, my air compressor for my bags. And you'll see that going up there, if we follow that, you'll see that it shoots up right through there and it goes through here. And it's a nice little grommet that's protected from the splash shield. So that's where we're gonna run it. I'm gonna poke a hole in this and then feed the wires through. All right, so if you look here, you'll see that that is the familiar wideband connector there, going through that door harness right there, or that door grommet right there. So this is the wideband power harness. As you can see, it's been cut before. This actually came from one of our customers. Shout outs to Jacoby for hooking it up. Jacoby has a Link plug and play ECU, and he went to the Can Lambda. And so this gauge was sitting around, he wasn't using it, so he gifted it to me. So we appreciate that, man. Good looking out, saved me a couple $100. So yeah, we just got to extend these wires. Got the wires extended. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find the correct colors, but I know what's what. Blue is the white wire and gray is the ground wire. And I've got it running out of the vent because I have the vent pod here. I actually really like this vent pod. I'm not affiliated by these guys anyways. I bought it off of actually Etsy. But what's really cool about it is that it's 3D printed, and I'm a little concerned about 3D printing because I don't know how well it's going to hold with the Texas heat. But it actually still has like the vent holes here. So, and then the defrost hole is here still. So it's definitely not going to work as good as it's as intended, but it still has some type of functionality, so I'm real happy with it. Okay, so I got my power probe hooked up. If you guys have never used one of these, definitely worth their weight in gold. It hooks up directly to the battery, and it'll actually tell you whether you got power or ground without having to switch up. Now, you could obviously use a test light. There's a little bit more involved with that, but if you're doing a lot of electrical, this is the way to go. So basically, we're going to check for ground, and I can touch this, and you can see that it tells me that it's negative, and it has a different tone. I can use this nut up here. And then as far as power goes, you really want two things. You want obviously power with key on, but what you really want to look for is something that has power while you're still cranking. So the only way to testing that is actually putting this in and then flipping the key over and cranking it and making sure that it still has power. So I'm gonna try to do that with one hand. As you can see, it's grounded, right? I'm gonna turn the key on, it switches the power, and I'm gonna crank it. And you see, while cranking, it still had power. So that's what we're going to use for our power for the wideband. Now, the reason why you wanna do that is wideband O2s have to do a heat up cycle. And if it drops power while you're cranking it, it's going to start the heat up all over again. One other thing here that I want to talk about as well is I see so many people who tap fuses incorrectly. There's nothing wrong with tapping a fuse, but what you want to do is you want to find the pin that does not have power. So obviously when you remove a fuse, there's two pins, right? So this one, as you can see, is our power supply. The bottom is our power supply, and the top has nothing. So what happens is that people will not check this and they'll tap it to power supply. Imagine if the gauge has a short, it's not going to blow, it'll blow the fuse still regardless, but it's still going to have power. So that could put you in a situation where, you know, you may potentially literally catch the car on fire. So when you're checking for this, make sure you, or when you're tapping for this, make sure you always go for the side that does not have power. And that's exactly what you want there. So like I said, when you go to crank it, it doesn't drop power and the wideband continually warms up. So we'll finish up here. All right, so we got the wideband hooked up. O2 sensor is in, and we've got the car running. So let's just see. Seems like it's already working. It's already past the warm-up phase. Cool. So wideband is working there. All right, so it was a little bit of a struggle, but we got it over. So this blue wire, which is actually the white wire off the AEM gauge, is a 0 to 5 volt wire. So what does that mean? It means that this wire will do 0 to 5. It will send out a signal that's 0 to 5 volts. And before, you could actually tap this into the factory wiring off the ECU, and then you could actually read your wideband off the cob access port. Unfortunately, with the green speed update, you're not able to do this. So people are probably wondering now, why'd you even do it? Well, Cobb has been working on getting things emissions compliant, and we don't know what the future holds. There's a good chance that this feature may come back in a different form, and then it would be legal again. Or secondly, what's more likely for me is I will probably finally swap over to a standalone ECU, and when that day comes, I'll already have my wideband ready to go. Now, for all you new Subaru guys, and this doesn't apply to the 15 plus WRXs, okay? But STIs it does. So any tuner that tells you that he can tune your car on the factory wideband or the factory O2 sensor is full of shit. Why do I say that? Well, the truth of the matter is that the factory wideband does not read, or the factory O2 sensor does not read that well, especially under a boost. And so you really, I don't know what the actual range is off the top of my head, but it's not that great. Basically, if memory serves, anything that's below like 13 or 12.5 to 1, it no longer reads correctly. So, you know, any tuner that says, oh yeah, I can do your E-tune without a wideband, one way or another, they're full of it. I don't know how they're getting away with it, but it ain't right. So what I have to do for my E-tune customers is they actually have to record their wideband with their phone and then send it to me while they're doing a log. And that is the only way that I have found that it's consistent enough and works. I don't know if any other tuners do that, but that's definitely how I do it here.